Today we're going to be testing out EcoFlow's new River 2 Pro to see if this is a good option for you. The new River 2 Pro joins the new River series lineup. This comes in at $649 and is 3 times the size of the River 2. After getting everything out of the box, this is what you'll see is your owner's manual along with warranty information, an AC charging cable, a 12-volt cable that you could utilize inside your car for 125 watts of power, and also a 5521 cable. As we take a look at some of the specs, the River 2 Pro has 768 watt-hours of capacity utilizing lithium iron phosphate batteries, which should give you up to 80% capacity after 10 years of use. It has a max charge of 940 watts, and this should only take about 70 minutes from 0 to 100% to charge. It can handle 220 watts of solar input, and this unit comes in at just over 17 pounds. As we take a look at the front of the unit, these USB-A ports can handle up to 12 watts, while the USB-C port is bidirectional. It can charge or discharge at 100 watts, meaning it can discharge up to 100 watts into my favorite jump pack from Gulu, which is still one of the best jump packs on the market today. There are 4 15-amp plugs that can handle a total of 800 watts. These 5521 barrel ports are able to handle 3 amps, and the 12-volt socket, which this is able to handle a total of 126 watts or about 10 amps. Now, one thing I do like on my power stations is covers. This is something I wish they would add, but that's just personal preference. On the back of the unit is where you'll find your AC charging port and DC charging port, which this will need at least 11 volts in order to kick on and can handle a max of 50 volts coming in, which we will go over a little bit more on this later, and of course 13 amps for the solar charging. But one thing they do not include is a solar charge cable, which this is something I think should be included. Now, when utilizing small power stations like this, your DC side is going to be more efficient. Even with the DC ports on, just letting it sit for 12 hours, it utilized very little battery life. As you can see here, after 12 hours, it used 1% of its battery life. Now, when it comes to AC standby losses, I ended up doing a test on this where I let it sit for 24 hours. I unplugged the unit, and then after coming back, you can see that it lost almost 40% of its energy while powering up the inverter and just letting it be on standby. So if not utilizing AC, make sure you turn the inverter off when not in use. Of course, all of these functions can be controlled with an EcoFlow Smart app. It's one of the best apps in the business when it comes to power stations. This allows you to control your inverter and turning it on and off on AC and DC sides, along with also going through other features in the app, like controlling your AC charge speed. You can also control other features as well, like unit timeout or AC timeout, checking on the specifications of the unit, and also making sure you have the latest firmware and that it's up to date. Now, one of the first tests I did was a DC 12-volt test. I ended up running a max load on this for about 10 minutes, and I found that it was able to hold the load just fine, and so I moved on to the next test. My next test was to do a DC capacity test simulating a CPAP machine with humidifier. This test ran almost 5 hours and 45 minutes, using up 601.6 watt-hours of energy. Okay, so when it comes to solar charging, I'm glad that they built it with a higher voltage. This allows me to use this larger solar panel. As you can see here, it says 11 to 50 volts. Well, that solar panel I just showed you has a max voltage of about 40. So now this allows me to plug it in, and I can use a lot of different types of solar panels now with this small power station, getting it to max charge at 220 watts. And if we take a look at our amp reading here, we are only at about 6.6 amps, leaving us well below the 13 max, which you can go over your amperage, but don't go over your voltage. Okay, another test too was to see if the new River 2 Pro will start up a diesel heater. So I already have it plugged in. The power is on, ready to go. You can't see this little screen too much. It's pretty bad out here in the sun, but you can see it says 12 volts right there. And so we'll go ahead and give it a shot and see what happens. So unfortunately, most of the time with diesel heaters, you just don't have enough amperage on a 12 volt because that's only 12 volts, it's 10 amps, so you only really rated at about 120, maybe 130 watts at most. And these are going to pull up to about 150 to 120 for that startup. So most of the time, power stations just can't do it. It's just best to hook up to basically a 12 volt battery, and that'll fire these up no problem, but we'll get back to the power station. Now, when having these smaller power stations, you're not going to have dual charging. So with this charging on DC right now, as soon as you plug in AC, that's what it's going to prioritize to. So as you can see, it shuts off DC charging and then moves over to AC as priority. Now, when it comes to AC power output, EcoFlow is usually really good about using good inverters. Their output is normally the best on the market. As you take a look here, our voltage standby is at 120, very similar to what a house would be at about 115 to maybe 123, depending how far you are from the panel. Another feature the EcoFlow River 2 Pro has is pass-through charging. This allows you to be able to power up a fridge if a storm is coming, and with the UPS function, once the power goes out, this will continue to provide power to, say, computers or your fridge until you can at least recharge it later. Another test we want to check for is to see how much voltage drop occurs when putting a load onto the power station. I'm going to ramp this up to about an 80% load. We'll check on our voltage drop to see how much it goes down, and also check on the power output to see how clean it is. And as you can see here, our sine wave is nice and clean. It puts out pure sine wave power at 60 Hz with minimal to no distortion. My next test was to do an AC capacity test. I'm going to set this up at a 0.25 C rate, which should discharge at about 190 to 200 watts. I had the unit fully charged, discharged it, and now you'll see that it'll pull a load of about 190 to about 195 watts, and then we'll record the data to see how much we were able to get out of this unit. I'll also be using a corrected power factor of 0.93 in this test. This test ran for 193 minutes, providing us 665 watt-hours of energy. This comes out to a total of 80.73% after the corrected power factor, which is right in line with most of EcoFlow's products on their smaller units. I also did a sound check, and this is what it's like with no noise in the room. And then this is with the fan on low. And now this is what it sounds like with the fan on high, with it fully charging. This is me 4 feet away, 3 feet, 2 feet, and right next to the fan, which this is actually a lot quieter than the Delta 2 that they released just a while ago, if using this for comparison. So what do you guys think about this new power station? For me, I definitely like the higher solar input. This allows to use a lot of different types of solar panels, like the rigid ones you saw during the test. But EcoFlow also has a big lineup of solar panels that you can use that are portable and even rigid as well. Now, if you are interested in the new River 2 Pro, I do have a discount code in the description below, so make sure you take advantage of that. It's not a lifetime code, so it only lasts so long. And let me know what you think about this unit in the comments down below, and I hope to see you guys next time.